American history is usually told through victories, genius minds, and moments labeled greatness. But behind that glossy picture is a long list of decisions so embarrassing, so foolish, and so ironic, they're honestly hard to believe. These 31 stories aren't about villains. They're about people, what happens when ego, ambition, ignorance, and blind faith push reason out of the room. Someone flew into restricted airspace using a plastic chair. A corporation managed to destroy a national symbol all by itself. A politician erased an entire career with a single sentence. And the consequences. They didn't stop there. They spread. Story 1. The man who flew into LAX airspace using a plastic chair. Larry Walters was the kind of guy who, if America handed out awards for bored but creative, he'd be a finalist. Day after day, driving his truck, staring at the backyard fence, asking himself if life really had anything more to offer. So Larry decided to go flying. Not by buying a plane ticket like a normal person. No, he chose a much more American solution. He bought dozens of weather balloons, tied them to a Sears plastic lawn chair, packed some beer, grabbed a BB gun, and sat down. The plan was simple. Float up a few feet. Just enough to feel something. Reality had other ideas. Larry shot straight into the sky like a video game glitch. He drifted into LAX airspace, where airline pilots had to radio in and explain that they had just seen a man sitting in a lawn chair floating past their cockpit window. Police didn't know whether to arrest him or ask for a photo. Larry survived. He knocked out power to an entire neighborhood, and he left behind one of the most immortal meme legacies in American history. Classic. Story 2. The man who thought lemon juice made him invisible to cameras. MacArthur Wheeler walked into a bank in broad daylight. No mask, no hat, zero concern. He believed he was completely safe because his face was covered in lemon juice. In Wheeler's mind, the logic was airtight. Lemon juice works as invisible ink on paper, so obviously it must work on security cameras too. Science heard this and quietly sighed. The robbery ended quickly. Wheeler walked out with the money and the confidence of a man who thought he had just hacked reality. A few hours later, police arrested him while he was sitting there watching the surveillance footage. Wheeler stared at the screen, clearly seeing his own face, and said the now legendary line, "But I used lemon juice." That moment didn't just end one extremely stupid robbery. It gave the world the Dunning-Kruger effect, the phenomenon where the least knowledgeable people are often the most confident. Story 3. The marathon champion who took the subway. Rosie Ruiz appeared at the Boston Marathon finish line like she had just completed one of humanity's greatest journeys. She crossed the line with an unbelievable time, smiling brightly. No sweat, no heavy breathing hair, perfectly in place, like she had just walked out of a salon. Around her, actual runners were collapsed on the ground, looking like they had survived the apocalypse. Something felt off immediately. No one remembered seeing Rosie on the course. There were no mid-race photos, no witnesses. And her legs looked way too fresh for someone who had just run over 40 kilometers. Organizers launched an investigation tracking Story's camera footage and timelines. The truth turned out to be painfully simple. Rosie left the course, took the subway, then rejoined the race for the final stretch. Her title was stripped. Her name became a global punchline. She didn't just cheat. She redefined the meaning of a shortcut in American sports history. Story 4. Perfect technique, wrong direction. The NFL stadium that day was a pressure cooker. Crowd noise, collisions, sweat, and adrenaline everywhere. Jim Marshall, a defensive lineman for the Minnesota Vikings, was having the game of his life. Then the golden moment arrived. He stripped the ball from the opponent. Open field ahead. Nothing but glory waiting. Marshall took off. The crowd screamed. Teammates chased after him. But there was one tiny detail that adrenaline completely swallowed. He was running the wrong way. As the entire stadium yelled to turn around, Marshall kept charging forward, full of pride, and finished with a massive celebration in the wrong end zone. Instead of scoring a touchdown for his team, he scored points for the other side. That moment entered NFL history as a collective facepalm. The lesson was painfully clear. In life, you can do everything right. Give it everything you have. Run faster than everyone else. But if you don't know where you're going, you can still ruin yourself in front of millions of people watching. Story 5. When a congressman thought an island was a boat. The hearing room that day looked exactly like Washington likes it. Sharp suits, perfectly placed microphones, cameras locked in. Everyone acting like they were saving the nation. The topic was relocating thousands of U.S. Marines to Guam. People talked budgets, infrastructure, security. Then Congressman Hank Johnson stepped in and decided to save physics. He looked at the Navy admiral with the expression of a man about to ask a very important question and voiced a concern that instantly muted the room. If too many people were moved to one side of Guam, could the island lose balance and tip over? In other words, he believed the island was floating like a rubber duck in a bathtub. The admiral paused for exactly one beat, the kind where the brain chooses between laughing and keeping its job. Then he answered politely that they did not believe Guam would capsize. The American public was not as polite as the admiral. The clip spread like wildfire. It became a national meme, and it left behind an uncomfortable question. If someone making decisions actually thinks an island can flip over, what else might they be getting wrong? Story 6. When you argue with NASA using backyard equipment. Mad Mike Hughes was the kind of person who didn't just believe the Earth was flat. He believed NASA was hiding that fact, like the Coca-Cola recipe. And since the internet wasn't convincing enough, Mike decided to do something only America would think of. He built his own rocket to go up and see for himself. He didn't call SpaceX, he didn't hire engineers. Mike gathered scrap metal, steel pipe, steam power, and welded everything together in his backyard like he was prepping a barbecue and accidentally added a rocket engine. Friends watched, half concerned, half unsure whether to stop him or film it. Because let's be honest, this was guaranteed YouTube gold. Launch day arrived with the energy of a very strange festival. Mike climbed into the capsule. People counted down. The rocket launched. For a few brief seconds, he actually went up. The kind of moment where you think, okay. Maybe then physics stepped in like the strictest teacher alive. A safety system failed. An accident happened. And everything ended in the one way no one wanted. It's a story that's both tragic and deeply ironic. Belief can make people fearless, but belief does not negotiate with gravity. Story 7. When a politician thought the press would get him bored, Gary Hart was the all-American political crush of the 1980s. Smart, calm, the kind of guy voters believed would never do anything stupid. And because everyone believed that Gary Hart did something very stupid. When rumors about his personal life started circulating, Hart didn't dodge them, didn't stay quiet, didn't manage the crisis. He looked straight at the press and basically said, "Follow me, you'll get bored." The press heard that like an open invitation to a free buffet. The surveillance didn't last long because the truth isn't great at hiding. Just days later, the photo appeared. Hart sitting on a yacht. A young model comfortably seated on his lap. The boat's name twisted the knife perfectly. Monkey business. No debate needed. No explanation required. His political career collapsed instantly. The lesson was painfully American. Never challenge the press, unless you're absolutely sure your life is genuinely boring. Story 8. Mike Tyson and how to spend money faster than a knockout. There was a time when Mike Tyson wasn't just the most terrifying boxer on the planet. He was a human money printing machine. A few minutes in the ring earned him more money than most people make in a lifetime. The problem, he spent money even faster than he finished opponents. For Tyson, shopping wasn't a need. It was a reflex. Mansions were bought and left untouched. Luxury cars were purchased and then given away to strangers just because they looked happy. But the peak of this lifestyle was keeping Bengal tigers as pets inside his home. Because why not? Each tiger burned through money on food care security more than a middle-class family's entire living budget. Tyson thought it made perfect sense. Tigers looked powerful. Bills, however, did not look as cool as tigers. Over $300 million evaporated. What remained was a bankrupt, confused Mike Tyson. The lesson was brutally simple. You can be unstoppable in the ring, but without financial discipline, your bank account will knock you out without needing a referee to count. Story 9. The invention that was supposed to change lives and somehow became a joke. Instead, before the Segway was unveiled, the rumors sounded like a sci-fi movie trailer. Tech insiders whispered that this invention would change how humans move, reshape cities, maybe even redefine civilization itself. Investors imagined a future where everyone glided to work, no traffic, no sweat, no walking like prehistoric humans. Then launch day arrived. Lights on, stage set, everyone held their breath. And the curtain dropped to reveal a two-wheeled standing scooter looking like a premium toy for mall security guards. No flying, no teleportation, no magic. Just a person standing upright, gently wobbling, moving forward at the speed of a polite apology to the surrounding air. The public reacted in the most American way possible. Laugh first, ask questions later. The Segway became a global punchline, showing up in movies and TV as a symbol of pure dorkiness. The lesson was crystal clear. Sometimes a product isn't actually bad, but if you hype it as the future of humanity, the present will slap you very hard. Story 10. When a car dream ended with a white suitcase. John DeLorean was once the embodiment of the American car dream. He designed a vehicle that looked like it came from the future. Gull-wing doors, shiny stainless steel, the swagger of a genius who didn't need a tie. Hollywood loved him. The public believed in him. Then the money ran out. Factories started bleeding cash, and the British government pulled the plug. At this point, most CEOs would look for new investors. DeLorean chose a more creative route. He met with drug dealers. That fateful meeting turned out to be an FBI setup. Cameras rolling, microphones hidden, and a suitcase full of cocaine placed right in front of him. In that historic moment, DeLorean picked up the suitcase, smiled, and delivered the now infamous line, "Better than gold." Legally, he walked free because of entrapment. Reputation-wise, he never recovered. The man who wanted to save the American car industry with innovation tried to save his company with white powder, and history never forgot that detail. Story 11. When the entire music industry missed the biggest train in history. In 1962, Decca Records held an audition that the music world would later wish it could erase from collective memory. In front of the executives stood a young band from Liverpool. Hair a little messy, vocals not fully polished, but packed with energy. They finished playing, they waited, and Decca nodded, in the most dangerous way possible. After some discussion, the experts delivered their verdict. Guitar bands were outdated. This style of music was on its way out. They passed on the deal. Then they signed another group that history politely forgot. The band they rejected was the Beatles. The rest the world already knows. The Beatles became a global phenomenon. They changed music, culture, even how people cut their hair. Decca Records, meanwhile, became the textbook example behind the most painful question in business history. If we had thought for just 5 more minutes, how different would everything be? Story 12. The man who proved luck doesn't require intelligence. Timothy Dexter was born poor, barely educated, and widely dismissed by America's 18th century elite as an idiot playing businessman. He spoke in rambling sentences, misspelled everything he wrote, and made business decisions that sounded so bad people felt the urge to physically stop him. The problem was, he never listened. When rivals tried to sabotage him by suggesting he ship heavy winter coats to the tropical Caribbean, Dexter agreed instantly. Everyone was sure he was finished. Then the ships arrived. Locals bought every coat, using them as skirts and trade goods. Massive profit. Another time, he shipped coal to Newcastle, a city so full of coal, its name became a saying. Perfect timing. A miners' strike hit. Dexter sold the coal at absurd prices. The upper class lost their minds. An idiot not only survived, he got richer than they were. Dexter became living proof of an uncomfortable truth. Sometimes history doesn't reward the smartest person. It rewards the luckiest one at exactly the right moment. And nothing annoys people more than that. Story 13. When a legend took off and landed in pure awkwardness. Evel Knievel was the living definition of American-style recklessness. White leather suit, star-spangled helmet, roaring motorcycle, and an unshakable belief that broken bones were just minor details. So when he announced he would jump the Snake River Canyon using a homemade rocket, all of America turned on the TV like history was about to be written with bandages. Everything was staged for a miracle. Cameras ready, crowd holding its breath. Knievel climbed into the capsule. The rocket launched. And for one brief moment, everyone thought maybe. This time he actually did it. Then the parachute deployed. Too early. Instead of soaring like an eagle, Evel Knievel floated slowly, drifting down the canyon like a deflating balloon. No explosion, no crash, no climax. American television froze in pure anticlimax. He survived. Of course he did. But that jump left behind a painful lesson. Sometimes failure doesn't need to be catastrophic. It just needs millions of people saying at the exact same time, "Wait, that's it." Story 14. Saving a little and losing everything. Elias Lucky Baldwin built the Baldwin Hotel like he was proving that money could turn into architecture. Tall, luxurious, gaslights blazing, interiors designed to make San Francisco's elite feel more important than usual. This wasn't just a hotel, it was pride, a symbol, something Baldwin believed would outlive his own name. But when the topic turned to fire insurance, Baldwin suddenly became extremely frugal. He decided it was money thrown out the window. A fire, please. That would never happen. Everything was fine. Until the day it wasn't. One night flames broke out, and because the hotel was mostly made of wood, the fire spread like it was following a script. Baldwin stood there watching his life's work burn brightly. No insurance policy, no backup plan. No one to blame but himself. In just a few hours, luxury turned into ash. The price of being cheap is sometimes very simple. You save a small amount today, and tomorrow you pay with everything you own. Story 15. When pride beat the weather and lost an entire term. In 1841, William Henry Harrison's inauguration day was so cold even the wind looked like it wanted to call in sick. Rain, freezing air. Everyone bundled up in coats, scarves, hats like they were preparing for a storm. Everyone except Harrison. The 68-year-old new president decided to prove he was still tough, still strong, definitely not old. So he skipped the coat, no hat, no gloves, because obviously the best way to show leadership is to argue with the climate. That wasn't enough. He then delivered the longest inaugural address in American history, nearly 2 hours long, standing outside like a talking flagpole. The crowd caught a few parts. His body caught all of it. Soon after, Harrison caught a cold, then pneumonia. Then events followed the exact direction everyone predicted, except Harrison himself. 1 month later, the president was dead. The shortest presidency in U.S. history ended before he ever fully warmed up. The lesson is simple and painful. Power does not make you immune to weather, and pride is the worst coat you can wear in the cold. Story 16. When America discovered Coca-Cola wasn't just a soft drink in America. Coca-Cola isn't just a drink. It's childhood memory, a movie image, a can that shows up at every party, every gas station, every holiday. So when Coca-Cola decided to change the formula, they didn't think they were tweaking a flavor. They thought they were improving the future. New Coke was born with full scientific confidence, sweeter taste, better market fit, designed to beat competitors. On paper, everything was correct. In real life, Americans reacted like someone had rewritten the national anthem. Complaint letters flooded in. People stockpiled the old Coke like survival supplies. Some swore they'd quit soda entirely if the original formula didn't come back. Just months later, Coca-Cola was forced to pull New Coke in an atmosphere that felt suspiciously like a collective apology. Coca-Cola Classic returned like a rescued hero. The lesson was permanent. In America, you can mess with politics, but don't touch the flavors tied to emotion. A brand isn't just a product, it's a relationship. And that relationship gets offended very easily. Story 17. When a few dollars cost more than human lives. In the 1970s, America entered the race for cheap cars. Whoever built faster, cheaper, won. Ford Motor Company wanted to win at any cost. So the Ford Pinto was born with a very American goal. Cheap, light, easy to sell, as fast as possible. The problem was in the back of the car. The fuel tank was placed in a dangerous position prone to exploding in rear-end collisions. Engineers knew. Reports existed. But fixing it would cost a few extra dollars per vehicle. So a decision was made. Don't fix it. On paper, the math looked reasonable. In real life, accidents happened. Minor crashes, sudden fires. people burned alive in incidents that never needed to exist. Everything truly exploded when internal documents leaked revealing the company had weighed the cost of settlements against the cost of repairs. The numbers won. Morality lost. The Ford Pinto became a dark symbol of capitalism's most uncomfortable question. If profit and human life aren't on the same side, which one do you choose? Story 18. When banning alcohol accidentally created the mafia. America entered the Prohibition era with a morally beautiful idea. No alcohol in society would become civilized. Less drunkenness, less violence, happy families, clean streets. On paper, the plan looked like a presentation approved in the first meeting. In real life, it looked exactly like a business opportunity. Legal bars shut down overnight. Secret bars popped up so fast even Google Maps couldn't keep up. Americans didn't quit drinking. They just upgraded their rule-breaking skills. Basements, hidden doors, passwords, lookouts. Money poured into the black market like water. And right on time, the mafia showed up like a startup solving a market pain. The government wanted to reduce crime. Instead, it accidentally raised an entire generation of legendary crime bosses. Prohibition left behind a very American lesson. You can ban alcohol. Just don't expect people to give up their weekend habits. Story 19. When America looked at the sky and wished someone had listened to the engineers. The Challenger launch day began like a national ceremony. Clear skies, flags waving, children sitting in front of TVs, America ready to applaud science. The shuttle lifted off beautifully, perfectly, like every slide and every meeting had said all good. Except earlier, the engineers had said this is not good. They warned about rubber O-rings, about cold temperatures, about risk. The warnings were acknowledged, nods were exchanged, and then set aside. Management trusted the schedule more than physics. Delays were inconvenient. Admitting risk was exhausting. Seconds after liftoff, the Challenger exploded in the sky in front of millions watching live. The nation froze. The investigation later found no missing miracle, no hidden mystery, just one very ordinary failure. Not listening to the people who knew what they were talking about. The lesson was brutal. In engineering, physics doesn't care about deadlines, and when management ignores expertise, television replays the consequences. Story 20. 22 minutes of television longer than an entire career. Uri Geller was once an international star, the man who convinced the world he could bend spoons with psychic power. He appeared on talk shows, stared intensely at objects, furrowed his brow, breathed heavily, and the spoon would actually bend. Audiences gasped. Science stayed quiet, mostly out of exhaustion. Then Uri walked onto The Tonight Show. This time everything was different. The objects were not his. No personal spoons, no familiar props. Just cameras, bright lights, and millions of viewers waiting for a miracle. No miracle happened. Uri sat there concentrating, sweating, explaining bad energy in the room, psychological pressure, vibes, everything except bending a spoon. Time slowed down to the point you could hear the awkwardness. 22 minutes later, the image of a psychic collapsed on live television. No expose needed, no debate required. Just control the objects. And that was enough. Story 21, when one man looked at Earth and said we're living. Inside it, Cyrus Teed woke up one day and decided humanity had misunderstood everything. According to him, we don't live on the surface of Earth. We live inside a massive hollow sphere with the sun and stars floating in the center. Science paused for a moment to take a deep breath. Teed didn't stop at talking. He founded an entire cult, convincing hundreds of followers that geography textbooks needed to be rewritten from scratch. They ran bizarre experiments, measured the horizon, dragged equipment to beaches to prove the Earth curved inward. When the results didn't match, Teed didn't quit. He adjusted the math, then adjusted the theory, then adjusted reality itself. Logic tried to get in. Belief locked the door. For Teed and his followers, errors weren't refutations. They were signs the universe wasn't ready yet. It's a classic lesson. If you love an idea long enough, you'll eventually believe everything is wrong, except you. Story 22, when wellness started with a very wrong idea. John Harvey Kellogg ran the Battle Creek Sanitarium, a health retreat for the wealthy, where where people came to cleanse their bodies and left feeling like they had survived a corporate team-building event. Kellogg believed most illnesses came from digestion and desire. In other words, he looked at the human body and concluded the problem is the gut and the fact that people enjoy themselves too much. To fix this, he invented cornflakes with a noble goal: make food so bland even libido would take a day off. But the main act was even more memorable. Kellogg was obsessed with enemas. So obsessed that he prescribed daily yogurt enemas like it was a secret to longevity NASA was hiding. The strange part, patients happily paid for it. Because when you're rich, detox sounds far better than being tortured. That's how an extreme form of wellness was born. If you package suffering with a nice name, people won't just accept it. They'll recommend it to their friends. Story 23. When a moral crusader got preached at by his own private life, Jerry Falwell Jr. once stood as a symbol of American-style morality. He spoke about traditional family values, personal discipline, the right way to live. As the leader of a Christian university, he didn't just teach students how to live. He told them what to stay away from. Then the internet did what the internet does best. A leaked photo appeared, strange enough to make the public pause. Then came a bedroom scandal so complicated that if it were a movie, the writers would ask for more time to make it believable. The story spread fast. Details piled up, and with every new detail, another piece of that moral image fell off. The public reaction wasn't shock. It was recognition. Here we go again. When the preacher doesn't live by the sermon, the lesson arrives quickly and fairly. Credibility vanished in a matter of days, because morality once turned into theater collapses the moment the curtain goes up. Story 24, walking very far for a very long time and for absolutely nothing. Penny Wingo looked at normal walking and thought this needs more risk. So he came up with an idea so strange no one knew whether to stop him or start filming. Walk from California to Turkey. But walk backwards. To do it scientifically, Wingo prepared special glasses with rear-view mirrors so he could see what was behind him while his body moved forward in the most literal way possible. The next 18 months were spent dragging himself backward through cities, deserts, villages, and endless looks of pure confusion. He hit things. He fell more than once, but he kept going like it was a national mission. The media quickly noticed because America has always loved people who work incredibly hard at things no one understands the purpose of. Eventually, Wingo completed the journey and became famous for a brief moment. His achievement left behind a very big question. If you accomplish something extremely difficult that is completely useless, are you a hero or just someone with a lot of free time? Story 25, when a man thought stealing a plane was a romantic gesture. Robert Driscoll's marriage ended in a very normal way. His reaction was not. Instead of sending long texts or crying to friends, Driscoll decided to prove he was still that guy with a move even Hollywood would reject. He stole a large cargo airplane. He climbed into the cockpit with just enough flight experience to know which controls to pull. Somehow the plane took off. It circled the sky like a giant question mark directed at the military. Air traffic control panicked. Defense forces tracked it, and Driscoll. He was living inside the strangest romantic movie of his life. The flight ended without an explosion, which already counted as a miracle. Driscoll landed, stepped out, and was immediately handcuffed by police. No flowers, no emotional reunion. Just one very clear lesson. Love can make people do stupid things, but stealing an airplane rarely makes your ex come back. Story 26, when a high society party ended in Nauvoo. The fireplace, James Gordon Bennett Jr. had everything money could buy. A massive fortune, social status, invitations to elite parties where people spoke softly and pretended not to judge each other. The one thing he did not have was the ability to stop drinking at the right moment. At a dinner party hosted by his fiance's family, Bennett drank until his brain clocked out early. When biology made a request, instead of finding a bathroom like an adult, he scanned a room full of guests and chose the fireplace. Not by accident, because he thought it was fine. That moment froze high society solid. The party ended on the spot. The engagement evaporated faster than the alcohol. The bride's brother was so furious he challenged Bennett to a duel because clearly no social rule book covered this situation. Bennett vanished from elite society, taking with him one brutal lesson. Money can buy almost anything, except the ability to aim correctly when you're drunk. Story 27. When two billionaires played Monopoly with the real silver market hunt. Brothers were already rich from oil, but being already rich wasn't fun enough. They wanted the kind of rich that made the entire world look over. So they came up with an ambition that sounded like a villain origin story: control the silver market. Buy so much silver that prices would move whenever they did. At first, the plan worked flawlessly. Silver prices skyrocketed. Headlines followed. Investors rushed in, and the hunts watched their wealth inflate like an overfilled balloon. They thought they had beaten the system. Then the system remembered it was the system. The government and regulators stepped in. Trading rules changed, margin requirements tightened, and the silver castle started to shake. In a single day, the market collapsed like someone pulled the plug. The Hunt brothers lost billions of dollars. From near kings of silver to living examples of the most painful economic lesson. When greed tries to choke the market, it usually ends up choking itself. Story 28. When a microphone cost more than silence. Alex Jones built an entire media empire by speaking loudly, confidently, and about many things that didn't require verification. To him, every major event was a conspiracy, and the more tragic it was, the easier it became to turn into content. The problem was, there are lines a civilized society does not allow to be crossed. When Jones claimed the Sandy Hook shooting was staged, he didn't just say something offensive. He aimed a spotlight directly at families suffering losses that could never be repaired. The fallout didn't stop at controversy. Grieving parents were harassed, threatened, forced to relive their pain every single day. Eventually, reality entered the courtroom. A historic verdict followed with damages so massive they functioned as a full stop to the idea that anything can be said. Free speech didn't disappear. It was simply reminded that freedom comes with responsibility, and it turns out reckless words come with a bill. Story 29. When a recording moved faster than the ref's whistle. Donald Sterling believed he was an old-school NBA owner. What was said in private stayed in private. The digital age smiled politely and disagreed. In a conversation that was supposed to be very private, Sterling said things that made even the microphone want to take a day off. The problem was the phone did not. The recording leaked faster than a fast break. Before anyone could ask who recorded that, all of America had already heard it, rewound it, and shared it like a talking cat video. The reaction followed a perfect chain. Players protested, sponsors ran, fans collectively nodded the universal, "Yeah, we're done." NBA looked at the situation and handled it like a clean dunk. Lifetime ban. Forced sale of the team, game over, no long debates, no press tour explanations. The lesson was thoroughly modern. In the smartphone era, there is no private conversation safer than simply not saying something stupid in the first place. Story 30. When one sentence personally ended an entire campaign. Todd Akin was running a fairly safe campaign. Not exciting, but stable enough to imagine winning. Then he went on television and chose the most dangerous move a politician can make. He talked about biology without understanding biology. In what sounded like a normal answer, Akin delivered a statement that made all of America blink at the same time just to be sure they heard it correctly. In a few seconds, he didn't just offend people. He invented a biological mechanism that had never existed. Science froze. Social media exploded. And the campaign, it caught fire. Akin tried to fix it. He apologized. He explained. He claimed he was misunderstood. But the internet does not have a rewind button. Every time he spoke, the old quote played again for free. His political career ended on the spot. The lesson is simple. In politics, some sentences don't need debate. They do all the work by themselves. Story 31. When curiosity became carry-on luggage. When Albert Einstein died, the world mourned a once-in-a-century mind. Thomas Harvey mourned in a very different way. He looked at the autopsy table and thought, what if I keep the brain? Then he did. No permission, no plan. Just a vague belief that genius lived inside a jar. Harvey took Einstein's brain home, put it in a beer cooler, and drove around America for decades. No top-tier lab, no scientific breakthrough. Just a car trunk and a story that made everyone ask why occasionally he cut off small pieces and mailed them to researchers like sharing birthday cake in the worst possible context. The result, no cosmic secrets unlocked, just time passing, and a career quietly drifting away. The lesson is very American. Curiosity is good. But if your road trip includes a famous human brain in a beer cooler, it might be time to stop and rethink the plan. 31 stories, 31 different decisions, but they all share one thing. None of them came from evil. They came from very normal people who genuinely believed they were right. Ego, overconfidence, greed, fear, or simply one moment of not thinking things through. And somehow those moments created consequences that traveled far beyond what anyone imagined. American history isn't built only on great inventions, it's also built on collective faceplants like these. Looking back, it's easy to laugh, but it's also worth asking yourself, if you were in their place, would you have done better? Stupid decisions rarely start with stupid intentions. So now the question is yours. What other decision in history deserves a spot on this list? Leave a comment. Let's argue about it.